Right. Welcome to everybody joining us today for our webinar,
Bi-
Achieving Inclusion, What Every Parent Should Know When Advocating for Their Child.
Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos a la reunión sobre inclusión, lo que todos los padres deberían saber al defender a sus hijos.
Before we get started, we would like to point out that you have the opportunity to join a Spanish language channel.
Antes de que comencemos, vamos a poder escuchar en un canal en español.
In order to do this, please locate the globe at the bottom of your computer screen and select Mute Original Audio. There you can select the language that you would like to hear, either English or Spanish. Please mute your sound to minimize interference. And questions and comments in the chat. And this is this may not be strictly true. We will defer to the presenters for this one. Can go into chat if you have them, and otherwise there will be space at the end of our presentation for more questions. I'm seeing that Christy is inviting everyone to ask questions at any time. So that's wonderful. Thank you, Christy. I believe, I hope that everybody has selected the language of choice, and we'll move on. The mission of the Peale Center is to educate and empower families to ensure that children, youth, and young adults, with disabilities and special health care needs lead rich, active lives as full members of their schools and communities. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Susan Kilmeyer. I'm Director of Training here at the Peale Center. I am an older woman with silver hair and pink glasses, a white woman with a Peale graphic background. We're so excited. We're so thrilled to have our speakers today who are just tireless advocates for inclusion and have been doing it for such a long time. So I'm going to throw it over to our Executive Director, Mary Hartley, to go ahead and introduce our speakers.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mary Hartley. I'm the Executive Director of the Peale Center and a parent advocate. I'm also a white woman with brown and gray hair and glasses, big glasses. And I wanted to just share a little bit about the booklets that we're working with today. So the first booklet that you're going to learn about is the one, obviously, mostly for parents and family members. But these booklets are not only available in the link that we shared with you yesterday from Inclusive Schooling, they're also available on the Peale website. And if you go under resources and then inclusion, it's right there. Our website just generally is pealecenter.org. We'll put that in the chat and the link to those books. We also wanted to let all of the self-advocates and parents especially know on this call, any allies, that we're going to be hosting an event on November 30th in Harrisburg, a big event with 10 partners from across the Commonwealth called Next Gen Inclusion. And these booklets will be at that event, along with a lot of other important materials. We're having some very exciting national speakers who we will be sharing out. And we will tell you that we will definitely share this link with everybody on this call, given your interest in the topic. And we look forward to hearing more from you about that. So first of all, I just want to say we had a great time working with Drs. Julie Costin and Christy Preddy-Fronczak on this important booklet. This was originally created 9 years ago, so it really needed a revamp. But in doing that, they were so thoughtful in how to approach the topics, but also how to make it simple for everybody to find what they needed immediately. And you'll get a good introduction to the booklet today. So I'm going to please help me welcome Julie and Christy. Thanks.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, team. Good to see everyone, but we can't see you all. So I should say good to have you all here.
That's right. We're so excited to be with you all today. And we know that we have an hour together and we want to make sure that we make the most of it and spend a ton of time giving you everything you need. It was a blast working with Mary and the team on creating this new document. So we're going to talk about how you can get access to everything that we're talking about today.
Yeah. So I guess, Julie, our main thing is to do a little relationship building just so we get to know each other a little bit. You get to understand our perspective and our work in partnership with Peel. And then we want to go through that booklet a little bit and make sure that you know where to find what you're looking for. So it's a bit of an overview, feels a little bit like a fire hose at times, but we'll always ground you and we'll make sure that it's clear to you where to go when you're ready to get a little bit deeper into whatever we might just open up.
Okay, so I'm going to start sharing my screen and we're going to jump into our presentation. And just know that we're so happy to be with you. This is Achieving Inclusion, Strategies to Ensure an Inclusive Placement for Your Child. And we're going to kick off, like Christy said, with a little relationship building. It's called a chat splash. So fingers to keyboard, everybody, if you feel like it, if you want to, if you're interested in doing this. And you get to select as many of these questions as you want to answer. So I'm someone who's a fast finisher. I actually have ADHD as a pretty significant attribute, and I would want to answer all 6 of these. Christy is someone who's very deliberate as a learner, and she probably would write a paragraph about one of these things, right, Christy? Maybe a book you read this year. And so you get to participate in the way that you want, but we'll be quiet for a minute. And everybody put in the chat either a specific highlight from your week. Answer the question, does your name have a special meaning? Share with us the best book you've read this year. Favorite breakfast cereal as a kid. How many languages you speak. Number 6, something else you feel like sharing. So it could be anything at all. And lastly, a pro tip is put the number of the thing you're answering in the chat as you go. And Christy, what are we doing? 2 minutes, 1 minute? What do you think?
Let's do a couple minutes.
Okay.
We need to slow down, Julie, for the interpreters.
Yep.
And folks can respond in English or in Spanish. And we'll read back some of the things that people are sharing so they can be interpreted either direction. So 2 minutes.
No puedo oírla. Sí.
¿Está subiendo?
Yep.
Can you hear a YouTube video?
Okay, Christy, I'm seeing some fabulous responses. And I'm thinking now about cereal. So I'm looking at Tammy loved Captain Crunch and still does. We've got Frankenberry. We've got all sorts of things. Melissa read the book Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and I want to read that book. So that's great. Sharon said, I've advocated relentlessly for 4 years for a specific nationwide change, and it's happening. Marguerite says, my legal given name is Marguerite. It was my great aunt's name, my mom's name, and my name. And it's not my daughter's name. We each go by a different nickname. Oh, it's now my daughter's name. We each go by a different nickname, but I love that we share this intergenerational connection. Hmm.
And if the interpreters received anything in Spanish, you're welcome to share them this direction as well. I thought they might be posted in Spanish and I was going to translate them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep them coming. You're welcome to continue to kind of share some things. This is just a way to get us started, get using the chat as Julie and I move through some of the topics today. And now we'll just take a minute to introduce ourselves. And Julie, maybe we'll do it the short way.
Okay, the short way. Here are some fast facts about me. And if you're still responding, great. Don't worry if you're crafting something from the slide before and you're just putting it in the chat, it's no problem. And if you want to, you can put any commonalities that you have between me and you as I introduce myself. Okay, so my name is Julie Costin, and I have two really cute kids. So we're going to start there. My kids are named Ella and Sam. Sam is at Brown University, and Ella is at Skidmore. I have a very cute wife. This is Ellen. We've been married for 5 years. I was an elementary, middle, and high school educator, teacher. And then I was a full professor at Syracuse University for 14 years, where I ran the inclusive education program. I have too many mammals that live in my house, 3 cats and 1 dog. And I have written many books about inclusive education, all of them from different perspectives. Good, Susan's putting her connections that she's having in the chat. Thank you. I've written many books about inclusive education. Maybe some of you have read some of them. I guess maybe interestingly, I've written a children's book called The Too Much Unicorn, and it's what it's like to be too much in any situation. And Christy and I have recently written a book together. Christy's about to introduce herself, but The Way to Inclusion, which is this brand new book out through ASCD that we love. And it helps school administrators make their schools more inclusive. My favorite thing in the world is co-teaching with my colleague, Dr. Christy Preddy-Franzak, and she's going to introduce herself next. Feel free to put any commonalities in the chat as we go.
Okay, let us know if we're still going too fast for interpretation. Julie and I get pretty excited about all things inclusion. So I'm Christy. I am zooming in from the state of Ohio on the Erie Nation's land, just south of Cleveland. Like Julie, I was a professor at Kent State University for a long time, preparing folks to be early interventionist and early childhood special education teachers. I grew up in the West, so I grew up in Utah and Idaho and went to school in Oregon. Like Julie, I've written lots of books about inclusion. We often call that blended practices in early childhood. And I only have 1 dog, and we sometimes say I have a cute husband, depends on the day. And I live in a log house. And that's about it. Some fast facts about me. Thanks, Marguerite. Oh, she says she has a cute husband too. I thought she said he is a cute husband. So, all right, Julie. So that's a little bit about us. We have a long history of thinking about and researching and writing and working with schools and families to become inclusive. And today we wanted to highlight sort of the top 5 things that we have pulled out for families, and we have a thing called a dashboard. So we're going to, oh, Maggie, it's Maggie. We didn't know that, Maggie.
Hi, Maggie. And Susan's here. Like so many cool people are here. This is fun. And EJ's mom's here. It's like a very fun day.
Yeah, sorry. Now we're going to be really distracted because we have this like very formal Marguerite person, and it's just Maggie.
Hi, Jess.
Hi, Jess.
All
Okay,
right.
sorry. Back to the dashboard.
Focus.
So the dashboard is something. Oh, Cindy's here too. Okay, sorry.
Cindy.
The dashboard.
Okay.
It is a content hub that you will have access to forever, and you can share it with anyone. So like Mary mentioned at the very start of our webinar, there is a booklet that is sort of the heart of today's webinar, the heart of our partnership, and the heart of what's on the dashboard. There's also a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to do a walkthrough. The dashboard has a web address. You probably saw it in some of the pre-webinar info, and it has a password. But once you're there, it's all accessible and you have it forever. Okay, Julie, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
So let me get there myself. I'll scroll over. And here's the dashboard. This is what it looks like. Got the Peel Center and a welcome. And then the little tennis shoes are, again, related to this booklet, this paper we wrote with the top strategies. You'll see us. You'll scroll down. We actually have 2 webinars. One is today at the time of this recording, September 14th, and one next week. You might be coming to both. You might want to invite your school partners to come and join us next week. And I'm sure someone from the Peel Center will put information in the link. But today we're talking all about families and caregivers and advocates for placement decisions. All right, Julie, you want to talk a little bit about the toggle? I'll do
Yes.
it one more time.
So just notice that Christy clicked on that purple rectangle. And then as she scrolls down, there are many different resources just for you. So the article that we've been talking about, Christy, go ahead and click on it because we've been talking about this article.
When you, couple things happen here. Sometimes, depending on if it's the first time you've clicked on it, it'll ask you for your name and your email, or it'll take you straight to it. It's just a way that we can make sure if there are edits or updates, we send it out to you. So in the chat, I'm putting the direct link, Julie, to the
Great.
booklet or the article.
Great. And so this is what we're going to be talking about today. Our goal being, let's give you as many strategies as we can in an hour to help you ensure inclusive placements for your students, your children. Okay. And if you're here and you're a school member or an administrator, perfect. You're welcome to be here. And one of our favorite things to do is help connect school systems to families to figure out how do we do this together. So Christy clicked on the toggle and you'll notice all of these different resources. We're going to be talking about some of these, like 100 ways to adapt anything, or academic supports on the fly, or 20 ways to provide silent or invisible support. Any of the resources on the dashboard you can share with others. Okay. This is the book we mentioned in case you know of an administrator who's really wanting to know how to create an inclusive school system. And then we have a link to the resources for our families that's on our website. Christy and I don't serve families directly very often. What we do instead is we support school systems to make inclusion a reality for all kids.
So it's a little bit like, I always say a rabbit hole, but Julie says it's like a master's degree. So once you get to the dashboard, feel free to click around. You don't have to do it today during the webinar. You'll have it forever. But there's all kinds of things here that might support you. We even have these short bites that are short training bites about IEPs, about co-teaching, about differentiation, all kinds of topics. So you're welcome to check those out. Pat Radel, a special education lawyer in New York turned judge, often co-teaches with us. So there are several conversations that we have about the myths. Julie and I will talk about how in this paper, the legal precedent for inclusion, and you might want to go deeper. And so feel free to come on over and check out these conversations, whether it be about behavior or about students with significant support needs. You've probably heard it all, why a student can't be included. And we try to debunk a lot of those myths in this little cluster here. We also have a PBS series that's free and reusable that we have found to be amazing conversation starters at IEP meetings or during transitions, or talking to maybe less than resistant colleagues, less than excited colleagues who might be resistant.
Right.
Okay. Anything else, Julie?
No, but I'm going to ask this amazing group. Go ahead and put in the chat. What did you learn about the dashboard? What's one thing you learned about the dashboard as we shared with you? Christy kicked it off to say, oh, here's the dashboard again. The password is inclusion. Jessica said we have lifelong access, tons of resources. Yes, Katie, anything else you're noticing? And this is the article Christy just put in the chat. Good, Kelly, thank you. Yeah, there are some bite-sized resources. Good. Andrea says, I love the legal bites. We are really committed to making sure that everything we're talking about has legal underpinnings. And unfortunately, many of the school systems that you're in aren't following the spirit of the law. And so that is a piece of the work that we do often. And yes, everything can be shared. Thank you, Kathleen. Access forever, Deb. Yes, Tabitha. Good. Okay. Christy, shall we jump in now that everybody, like Oprah, you get a dashboard and you get a dashboard. Everybody's got a dashboard.
Yep. Let's do
Okay.
it.
Okay.
And I'll let you kind of decide where you want to go first.
All right. We're going to start with strategy 1, which is called Learn What's Possible. So in the article, we decided the first thing families need to know is what's even possible when it comes to inclusive education and their children. And so what we've suggested is the video called How to Become a Circle Maker, or the Circle Makers. Put no in the chat if you've never seen the video. Put yes in the chat if you have seen the video, just so we can get a sense. No means I've never seen it. Okay, good. Tons of no's. Great. Some people have. Okay, Christy, this for me feels like we should share it based on
for
them.
sure. And we
okay.
did maybe a plug for reusing it, friends. Yesterday we were in Arizona, and when we asked the teachers after our hour with them, what was the most powerful thing that we shared, or maybe it was Colorado, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
They said the Circle Makers video.
Yeah.
So this idea of how do we come together and widen circles was a powerful way that educators also resonated with. So I think, yes, Julie, let's watch it. It's not interpreted in Spanish, so I can give, I was trying to think if I could give them the transcript fast. There's a book that goes with this. And so I'm going to grab that after the video. So any of you who are listening in Spanish, if it's hard for the translation, but it goes pretty slow, I will get you a full transcript of it in English that can be transcribed into Spanish. Okay. Sorry, Julie, I had to think that one through.
Yep, no problem. Oh, good.
All right.
Sorry, friends, during the video, at the end of the video, we're going to ask you what really struck you about the video. So if you're someone who likes to know what we're going to ask at the end, we're going to ask you to put in the chat what struck you, what felt important as you watched.
Okay. And it's just 5 minutes. So here we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Julie Costin, and I'm here to talk about what is inclusion with a story that I've written called The Circle Makers. Long ago in schools, we tried to draw lines to make distinctions between students. These lines were drawn in thick, dark ink between people. These lines were drawn to mark the differences between them. These lines were supposed to be helpful. They were supposed to help teachers distinguish between those who could go fast and those who needed to go slow. These lines were meant to help teachers teach the right stuff in the right way. These lines made some people feel comfortable and safe. One problem was there were so many lines that we had to put labels on our lines to keep them straight. General education, special education, learning disabilities, emotional disabilities, gifted and talented English language learners, intellectual disabilities, special education rooms, special education hallways, special education schools. Another problem was when we drew these lines, someone was always on one side and someone was always on the other. Someone was always left out. Someone was always given less. Someone was always wanting to be seen or heard or part of. Another problem was that people assumed that students on one side of the line were typical learners, and that typical was real and that average was true, and that anyone who wasn't average had to go somewhere else to learn something else. The problem was people saw disability as something that needed to be fixed, and it needed to be fixed over there in a different room in a separate space. Eventually, these lines created separate boxes or classrooms, a separate system with separate teachers, classes for students who were thought to need separate things. People even started to think that separate lines and boxes were good. Another problem was every person on both sides of any line had different needs. Every person needed to go fast sometimes and slow at other times. Every person was more curious about certain things and bored by other things. Every person had things they were good at and other things they were not good at. So often the lines were blurry. Sometimes people couldn't agree on where to place the lines. Sometimes even the line makers argued about where to place the lines. These lines and these boxes weren't real, but people thought they were. At the same time, we knew that separate was never equal. We knew that humans needed to be together and belong in order to learn and grow. We knew that separation from other people was likely to affect everyone's hearts and minds. So in education, we decided we had to do something. We had to bend some lines and move some lines and erase others. We had to take all the lines and stick them together end to end. It took a lot of time and a lot of work. This now made a brand new long line that we kept bending and bending and bending. The new line connects end to end. This new line is called inclusive education. This new line is a circle. This new circle was very difficult for the original line makers. You see, when they went to school, straight lines existed. Straight lines were important. They grew up thinking some children belong on certain sides of certain lines. And change is hard, especially for line makers. This new circle is called inclusive education, and it means we value everyone. We use this new line to connect, not to separate. Inclusive education means we are curious about how we are alike and how we are different. We challenge and support everyone. We teach to students' individual strengths. We give students choices. We celebrate what is unique about each person, because we learn best with and from those who are different than us. What happened to the line makers? Turns out line makers are the most excellent circle makers. As soon as they saw that these circles created new opportunities for their students and new connections and a sense of belonging, these circles helped students to do better, to learn more, and to make friends. It turns out that students who used to be on one side of the line were excellent teachers of students who used to be on the other side of the line. And the exact opposite was also true. It turns out that it wasn't just good for students on one side of the line, it ended up to be better for all students on every side of any line. But the story does not end with just drawing the circles. Like a circle, this story has no end. It's simply the beginning. Being together inside the circle is the very first step. It's what happens inside the circles where the true magic can be found. To all of you circle makers, let's continue to create wider and wider circles together.
All right. So some folks have already started to write phrases or words. Take a second and do it. Any thoughts or feelings?
I love those little heart emojis that you're putting. That's so fun. We've got really good comments coming. I'll try to be quiet for a whole 30 seconds. So you can write in the chat anything you're thinking.
Julie, maybe we could ask folks to also share or answer Christine's question from their own experiences. When have folks shared this? I want to say, yes, I would share it at an IEP meeting, but there's a part of me that says, well, it depends on my relationship with my IEP team members. So I thought maybe if anyone had done it.
And Cindy, just to answer it from my perspective, I would say if you sent it before the IEP and said, this is what we really believe about schooling for our child, and maybe people could watch it beforehand. Good. Okay. People are writing such amazing things. People are talking about overcoming ableism. People are talking about the fact that there's so much to learn from our students, and that students on one side of the line are really good teachers of students on the other, and the opposite is true. Yeah, good. Okay. It's shareable. You can share it right from your dashboard if you want. No problem. Christy, is that how they share it, from their dashboard? Okay. Okay. So we're going to return to understanding what's possible, learning what's possible, really knowing what's possible in the world of education. And I'm going to share my slide, maybe, Christy. I don't know. I might. All right. And so we're going to talk to you about our definition of inclusion, which you also have on your dashboard, and it's shareable, and we love it. So how we're going to share it today is I'm going to do a read aloud of the text on the left-hand side. And during the read aloud, please put in the chat any words that really strike you or feel important to you. We can also talk about how you might use this handout with your team. Okay. Inclusive education means we no longer accept that separate classrooms, separate schools, and separate lives are in the best interest of any student. Separating people by ability disadvantages everyone. Belonging is a human need. Our educational system, practices, and spaces need to be reimagined. I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to ask people to share any words that really struck you in that first part of the definition. Francis noticed no longer accept. Christy, do you want to read the second paragraph today?
So we can do the same thing. You can follow along on the screen. You can follow along in the handout, which I wanted to put in there. Give me a second. Sometimes it's easier to see it on your own screen. So there's the handout. So inclusive education means every student is valued because of their strengths, gifts, and even challenges. As disability is simply diversity. Everyone benefits from meaningful participation and opportunities to learn grade level content with diverse peers. We must trust that all students come to us as incredible whole people who do not need to be fixed.
So same thing. Look at the second paragraph. People are resonating with disability is diversity. Everyone benefits. Mhm. Yeah. And if we're thinking about disability as diversity, it is really important to think about where students are educated and how we're making decisions about students with disabilities related to their education. So for us, inclusive education is definitely a heart set or a mindset, meaning a way to think, a way to feel, a way to be. And really it encompasses this first part of our definition. The second part of our definition looks like a lot of words, doesn't it, Christy? Do you want to explain how we think about this?
Well, I actually, let me do two things. I want to explain kind of what these 9 things are. You'll see one is highlighted because today we're really thinking about partnering with families. But in parallel, Julie, I want to bring up how hard it is for people to imagine something different if they've never seen it.
Mhm.
Okay. So we call these the 9 ingredients to the soup of inclusion. So sometimes when you are advocating for inclusive placement, people will say, we have tried that and it won't work. They might say, it won't work for your child because of these reasons. It's overwhelming. They're so far off grade level. We can better meet their needs over here. So there's really good intention. But oftentimes what we find is a school district doesn't have all the ingredients of the soup. So when they've tried it before, or when they think it might not work for your student, or when they think a different place can better meet your child's needs, it's because they don't see inclusion as having all 9 ingredients. Some ingredients are missing, maybe misunderstood, or they're hoarded. So somebody took all the salt and put it in a resource room.
Mm.
So it's like, we've got salt, it's just over there. And you're like, can you bring it to the table? Then everyone who might want salt can have it. And the person who you thought wanted salt doesn't have to have it. So these ingredients can trip folks up because they think they know what inclusion is. And their intention, their heart, so their mindset is like, I know what inclusion is. It looks like this kid getting to come out on the playground once a week. Or I know inclusion and it doesn't work for kids with autism. So they have this mindset, this belief. And then somebody says, oh, but I have really good skills, Julie. I'm really skillful in working with kids with autism. So just bring them to my space and I can meet their needs. It's smaller, it's quieter, it's more effective if I do it over here. So my heart is in a good place. I want what's best for this child. But we're going to argue that when we say inclusion benefits everyone, when we say that inclusion is the way, when we say inclusion is a right, not a rite of passage, we mean you get all 9 ingredients.
Okay.
Okay.
Really good, Christy. And you're getting lots of thumbs up and lots of love. And Maggie likes the salt analogy. That's your first time you've used it, and I love it. Let's just bring the salt to the table. It can move around. It's a portable service, and we can all get the salt we need. All of these 9 are really important, like Christy said, and they all have to be there for a school to be inclusive. So take a look at these numbers and put in the chat which of these numbers feels most important to you today anyways. So is it the systems and structures in your school? Is it hiring diverse and inclusive minded leaders that's an issue in your school? Is it eliminating barriers? Is it welcoming spaces? Is it how they co-teach? Is it partnering with families? Differentiation? Is it the idea that we just provide support right where kids are? Number 8. Or is it number 9? When they see challenging behaviors, do they realize, look at this opportunity to create warm, safe relationships, to reduce stressors and soothe systems? Wow.
And if anybody's feeling a little bit like, all the above plus some more.
Yes, Maggie, that's right.
Yes. Right, Maggie. That's, I was just feeling inside me like, yes, as Julie read, I'm like, oh, and that. Oh, yes, a little of that too. So not only do we need salt, but we need some paprika, we need some cumin, we need some pepper, and it's like, it can be overwhelming, especially since we have a history, Julie, I would say, of repeatedly putting the burden on families to solve these problems that schools might face. Like, well, we would do it, but we can't because we don't have enough paras, or we would do it, but our co-teachers is not possible with our union. And so then as a parent, you're like, well, I mean, I can't fight the union and the school board and the hiring and so where does that leave us, Julie? If we recognize these are the ingredients, how do we advocate? Where do we begin?
Great question. I think it starts with having a conversation and saying, it's true, you're doing this and this and this and this and this really well, but these are the areas where we need more options. These are the areas we need more support. And so I think part of this work is having a common understanding of what it is that we're advocating for. What is inclusion? And how might we get there? And Christy said something that's about the $1 million point, which is it should not be on families to convince school districts or to create the professional development for school districts. And we also know the reality in Pennsylvania and other places that a lot of times right now you do feel like the conduit to this information. Christy mentioned earlier, like that there are many times when families hear that there's a segregated place that's better for their kid. And it's better for lots of reasons. And we're going to go very quickly through the myths around segregation and inclusion, just so that you know where to find this information and what it says. And the it of it is Christy and I were both researchers at Research One universities doing important work around inclusion. And the thing is, the research around inclusion is so crystal clear that you can no longer publish studies that say, does inclusion work? Because it was proven in like the 80s. And so that's the reason that there aren't a lot of studies like, is the earth round anymore? No, not many people are studying that because it's like a known thing. So we have to talk about the myths that we're sometimes served, if we're going to use this analogy. One of the myths is that in separate classrooms, there's more direct instruction from highly qualified educators. And that is a myth, meaning what we find when we look very closely at segregated classrooms or ABA classrooms or self-contained classrooms is that usually it's a less qualified educator around the content and there's not more direct instruction or support. People often say you need a quiet environment. Well, let me ask y'all this. Has anyone in here ever been in a self-contained classroom? Put yes if you have.
It might come by different names. It might be specialized. It might be by a particular disability label.
Okay. We have a total mix, lots of yeses, lots of nos. And if you have, now only if you have answered this question, if you've been in a self-contained classroom, is it a distraction-free environment? Susan says it's not quiet. Nope, 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 nope. So it is absolutely a myth to say you need a quiet setting where we're going to put the 12 kids with autism in it, and it's going to be just silent and it's going to be distraction-free. That makes actually no sense.
And Julie, let me ask you, as someone with ADHD,
Yeah.
who others would say is highly distractible, is that really the heart of your learning, is the distractibility? Like if we made it really quiet for you, does that help you?
No. So that's the other part of it is all people's brains are different, but just speaking from my own, someone who has very highly distractible ADHD, I love an environment with a lot going on. I need an environment though, where most of the people know what's happening. And so when you think about a general ed classroom, you want to be with general ed peers who have a pretty good sense of the scope and sequence of where we're headed. And I can watch those models and learn from those models. I may get distracted for a second or a minute or an hour, but I'll be back. And so those are just examples of, we don't need distraction-free environments, and self-contained classrooms aren't even close to that.
And kind of on that note, Julie, if I were to say, well, I'm going to give you a quiet space so you have more time, is it more time that you need? Is time like something easy for you to manage? And if you just had more longer time, you would get your work done?
No, it's just executive functioning within that time for
Mm.
me,
So
how to use it. Mhm.
yeah. So I think what I wanted to highlight, thanks, Julie, is that
Mhm.
sometimes we have go-to things like, oh, it's too distracting, or, oh, it's too loud, or, oh, it's too fast. And we think with our neurotypical brains that the solution is, and what Julie just said was, no, no, no. What I need is predictability. What I need are clues to help me continually stay on track. And I need to be taught executive functioning and time management skills, not removed and given long periods in quiet with no idea of what's going to happen next. Does that make sense? So we do things in these segregated or separate places that are actually not what Julie needs.
Absolutely. And there have been many studies that say more individualized supports to help students reach grade level content happens in self-contained classrooms. But in reality, what happens in self-contained classrooms is usually not even close to grade level standard, and it is usually watered down, and it's usually kind of problematic. So the facts that go with the myths that I'll just kind of share these. And if you want, you can take a screenshot of this if you want. But students spend less time on academic instruction when they're in a self-contained classroom. They're often mostly taught by paraprofessionals who are the least trained people in our system, working with students with the most challenging needs. Students often experience higher levels of distraction. They receive less individualization, and they have less access to grade level content. Now, we're just talking about the nice stuff here. There's also much more likely that a student will be restrained. A student will be, what's the word that I'm thinking of? Punished, restrained, and things of those nature, but we're not even getting into that. So we've got to think about the fact that self-contained classrooms aren't almost ever the best place for a kid.
And so, Julie, maybe one quick tip we could give them is our I agree statement.
Okay.
Okay. So what I mean by that, Hyde, I think, and others said it. So Julie, their advocates and parents are going to say, hey, school district, here's some research.
Yeah.
Or they're going to say, hey, I'm understanding that the legal precedent is for a less restrictive environment. And then the school district is going to say something that seems like a little bit like, well, all the other parents with kids with autism, let's say, have loved our program. You're the first one that's sort of suggesting there's a problem. Or they say, no, we can really tell that your student would do better over there or over here, and this is not a good match. And I think when I hear that, they're the experts, I would get shut down a little bit. So just quickly, Julie and I have a phrase we try to use that says, I agree. And then you go, but I don't agree, right? So you'd say, I agree. All students have had different experiences with this ABA program. And my son or daughter, or they need access, whatever. So this I agree is, what do you agree with? You agree that every student has had a different experience. You agree that there are lots of different needs that every student brings to the table that need to be considered individually. You agree. And so you just, like Julie said, you pick it apart, but don't get distracted by the over here, over there, we know best. You can still agree that some students may have been successful, but your student, your child needs X. Does that make sense? It just buys you a moment to catch your breath when you feel like, how am I going to argue against that? So anyway, Julie.
Christy, you said, but my child needs X. And I'm just going to ask everyone who's successfully argued for this. One of my favorite things to say is, my child needs, and then you mention only things that are in general ed settings, like my child needs language models. My child needs behavioral models.
Positive
behavioral models. My child needs access to friendships.
And keep in mind too, even if Julie said my child needs access to grade level content, we never said that they have to, accomplish it fully. We never said they have to get 100% A+ on it. They just need to get to have access to, participate in, and make progress towards the general curriculum.
So Christy, this is the tattoo y'all need, everybody. You might need a tattoo that says access, participation, and what's the third one, Christy?
Progress towards.
Participation and progress. Okay, these words were I put them in the chat. Access, participation, and progress in the general education curriculum. Those are your 3 words that basically define what special education is legally. Special education is access to general education content, curriculum, and peers. So for every minute they're suggesting pulling your child out of general education, they have to explain how that's giving them access to general education content, curriculum, and peers. Okay? Access, participation, and progress in general education. Maggie, I hope you get that to tattoo, or at least maybe just the temporary ones until you really get decide, But the other thing special education is all over here. It's responsive, it's customized, it's personalized. It's the right of students with disabilities, and it's about removing barriers to general education.
So let's pause there, Julie, because and maybe Heidi, I'm not sure, Hernandez says, I tried this, but then it sounds like I'm asking for too much. And so again, you could say, I agree. I'm asking for special education, which is by definition, responsive, customized, and personalized. I agree. It can sound like a lot, but we can do it together. And so our only job is to remove barriers to access.
That's it.
That's it. That's all special education is designed to do. Keep going, Joel.
Yeah. So just be careful, because many people think it's something else, the right-hand side.
Right.
Many people will say
expensive, hard, special.
Yeah, but it's not a place. So anytime someone says they need this place, you ask, is there something special about the 4 walls? Is it the floor? Is it the ceiling? The place has nothing to do. The responsibility of a school system is to provide the least restrictive environment, which is over in the general education classroom. So it's not a place. It's not a person. It's not a program. It's not separate from what students should have. It's not ability grouping, and it's not cohorting. If you don't know what cohorting is, it means like all the kids with more significant support needs travel in a group. Let's say they're in 8th grade, they go first period, second period, third period, fourth period, fifth period, so that they have support. That's not what we're talking about. All special ed is access to general education content, curriculum, and peers.
What Julie didn't just say was special education is access to the general education classroom. Like, we're not talking about locations or places. We're talking about content, curriculum, peers. And so where does that content, curriculum, and peers often appear, reside? In the gen ed classroom, or the hallway, or the choir, or the library, or the playground. So basically, general education curriculum or non-curriculum. So the federal law, IDEA, says that students with disabilities must access curricular and extracurricular things that students without a disability have access to. So we're basically just saying it's not a place, and it's not just a standard or a grade level content. It's anything the school offers to a student of a particular age or grade. That is what a student with a disability should have access to by right, can participate in by right, and should have the accommodations to make progress towards by right.
So we know we have an hour with you, and we know there are 3 minutes left. We're going to share with you again, the article lays everything out. And what we're really proud of this article, one of the things we love the most is it gives you all the legal underpinnings. You can share it with folks. You can talk to people about it. We also have a separate one for school systems. We're going to be talking about that one next week on a PEEL webinar, and you're welcome to come if you're interested. We'll get further down the road. But just know that what we talk about are these powerful classroom practices. So if we put kids with disabilities back in general education, we have to do things differently. We have to collaborate and co-teach differently. We have to differentiate the content, meaning we're going to think about the range of learners. We're going to expect a range of learners, and we're going to be able to support all learners in one classroom. We need to learn about adaptations, natural supports, and behavioral supports. Okay. So these are what we call the powerful classroom practices. And these, if you're interested, there are 2 articles, one's for parents and one's for school systems. It doesn't mean you can't also read the school system one to get even more information about what this looks like. But today we really wanted to go deep only into the first one to say, we have to know what's possible, and we have to know how to do that. And these are the powerful levers to pull when it comes to creating inclusive school systems. Okay, Christy, I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to go to our last slide. But in the meantime, anything that you think we should include? I'm not stopping sharing my screen, so that's cool.
Okay.
This is what we had planned over here, see but
We always
instead,
think we have so much time. It's okay.
yeah, instead, we'll just tell you everything is there for you. And we wrote it with you all in mind, just in Pennsylvania, in terms of what you need, and really, honestly, how far apart your school systems are from inclusive education. So a lot of people are saying really lovely things like, I wish you had more time to speak. No, we do too. But just know this, how we want to end today is just put a word or 2 in the chat, and feel free to join us for the next time we're with PEEL, and you'll learn a lot more strategies for school systems. Please remember your dashboard. So much is there for you. And again, a lot of times after something like this, families will contact us and ask, do we provide individual supports for families or for students? And right now we don't, but what we do is provide really good support to school systems so that they can change and be more inclusive. Okay. People are writing such lovely things. Thank you all.
I know the PEEL Center has some things to conclude with too, Julie.
Okay, perfect. So keep sharing your words in the chat, a word or 2 that comes to mind when you think of our time together. And PEEL has a little more.
Thank you so much, Christy and Julie. That was amazing. I wish we could just go on for another hour at least, but we'll be together again next week. We will share with everybody the ways to, if you haven't registered for that and you're interested in a sort of more classroom look at inclusion, definitely sign up for that, and you will have the opportunity. We're going to follow up with a follow-up email and share lots of information with everybody who registered. Okay. So I was hoping also that, and also stay tuned. Peel is going to in November have a very exciting Next Gen Inclusion Conference here in PA, and definitely keep your ears to the ground to look for that information that's coming out very, very shortly, and you guys will get that information as well. So Anya, can you please put out the evaluation? So we really owe it to our funders to let them know how we did with all of our presentations. So if you could, when this QR code comes up, get your phones out and point it at our QR code. It would be a great way to let our funders know that you found this presentation important to you, that you'd like more like this, that it was, that you learned something new, all of those good things. It's only, I think it's 5 questions, so it'll only take you a second. Point your phone at this QR code to fill out that survey. All right. And I'll give you just a few seconds for you to do that. And perhaps thank you. Anya put a registration link in the chat for you guys to go ahead and sign up for that one. And Mary has put also an article that's on the Peel website for you to access.
Great.
And then finally, I want to put up the information that's on the next slide for anyone who feels like they need assistance, who has questions about inclusion, follow up on an individual basis about their child. Please reach out to us, and you can talk to a family resource specialist of your own. And here is how you can do that through this website. And perhaps that could be also be put in chat. That would be great. Okay. And that's all from us. Mary, do you have any final remarks?
I was just putting in the chat. Thank you, Christy and Julie. This is great. I love the energy. We're so excited to sort of reinvigorate parents again after the pandemic about inclusion, making sure that everybody understands their rights and ability to include their kids in their home school district. Please encourage your superintendents and principals, especially, but also your teachers, to come to the next session. It's really important that systems change happen, not just with your family. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
All
Mary.
right. Thank you.